You know, cutting dovetails is infinitely easier with a good saw than with a bad saw. But what exactly makes a good dovetail saw? Well, let's take a close look at this Bad Axe Toolworks Stiletto Dovetail saw, and maybe we'll discover some of those unique things that'll make this a must-have saw for you. Dovetail saws can be pretty personal, actually, as to what makes it a favorite for you. But I think the really good ones all share some common attributes. And the first of those attributes is, how does it come to hand? Does it feel good? Does it fit? Well, this solid cherry handle in a classic shape on the Bad Axe saw really comes to hand nice. It just feels perfect when you grab it. At least it did to me, and I'm kind of hard to please when it comes to these things, but it felt really, really good. Another thing that's important to me is the stiffness of the blade. And even though this is a very thin blade plate, this big steel back here makes this saw really stiff. So it doesn't have a tendency to wander around like some other saws do. Let's take a minute and go look at some of the specifics. The Bad Axe Stiletto Dovetail saw is considered to be a 12-inch dovetail saw. It actually measures from the very end to the tip of the tote 17 inches overall. And I like that. It's a nice long saw, and it really helps it to track nicely in the cut. But there's more reasons that this saw tracks and cuts so well. And one of the reasons is the folded steel back. The blade is sprung into that folded steel back. Let's take a look at that. A folded back sprung onto the blade is the traditional way of making a back saw, and it's still the best. The spring clamping action holds the blade firmly, yet if something terrible should ever happen, it can give a little. More importantly, if the saw is ever in a condition of not being perfectly straight, it can be retensioned or reset, so to speak. In recent past, manufacturers have cut costs by mounting saw blades into the back with epoxy or pins, but with that mounting method, there's no give at all, and the blade cannot be retensioned. So if you ever kink the blade, you're just stuck needing to buy a new saw. This traditional folded back is one of the things that makes this saw so special. And I really like this black oxide finish. It's sort of a gunmetal type finish that's not at all distracting when you're trying to follow a cut line. Now the cut depth of this saw is 1 3/4 inches, which is fine for almost any dovetail work that you might do. The teeth are configured, a rip configuration of course, at 15 points per inch, and these teeth are hammer set. That's another key to how well this saw starts and how well it cuts. Let's take a look for just a second at how easy the saw starts a cut. Now a lot of people, probably most, well certainly me, start a saw cut with a backstroke. It's force of habit, I think, something we probably learned as kids. The fact is, even though it's habit, there's really no need to start a cut that way with a fine saw like this. You can just line up your cut and make your first push, and the saw starts sawing. Another nice thing about this saw is the plate thickness. It is 0.018 or 18 1/1000ths of an inch thin, which is thinner than the dovetail saw I've been using, but it's held so stiff with this back, I mean, it just cuts like a dream. This thing, even though the back is quite heavy, the entire saw is fairly light because this plate is relatively thin. Folks, if you haven't yet invested in a really good dovetail saw, I would definitely put the Bad Axe saw on your short list and give it serious consideration. I didn't think I would, but I've fallen in love with mine. You know, classes are helpful, practice is important, but when making dovetails, I don't think anything is more important than a good saw.